It's fancy, it's pricey, it's 95% butter. You guessed it, it's French cuisine. When you think of French food, you probably picture a pristine white plate with something tiny and absurdly expensive in the middle. It's not food that you can grab and eat with your hands, and it's definitely not takeout. It's refined, it's bougie, and it usually comes with fine china and white tablecloth. That's because French food was shaped by the French nobility and elite for nearly 1,000 years. And to understand how we went from a simple loaf of bread to $90 appetizers at Michelin star restaurants, we need to take a look at French history and see how crazy over the top these French elite really were. The roots of French cuisine can be traced back to ancient Gaul, and although they don't look the part, the Gauls were skilled cooks. Sure, they lacked the all-clad and the Le Creuset pots and pans we have now, but they knew how to use herbs to spice up their food. Even 1,000 years ago, they were seasoning with cumin, anise, and garlic. When the Romans rolled around, they brought even more flavors. Olive oil, garlic, black pepper, and cinnamon all made their way into food. The Romans even came up with specialty hams, what we know now as charcuterie. But it wasn't just about taste, it was about status. The Roman elites dined on flashy silverware, eating their meals on ornate silver plates and drinking from cups carved with pictures of Roman gods. This mindset of abundance carried into medieval France. French nobles hosted extravagant feasts, flaunting their wealth with mounds of food, all of which were heavily spiced with expensive ingredients like saffron and turmeric to make dishes look even more vibrant and more expensive. After a brief pause due to the famines, and the plagues, and the wars, France began to find its footing again in the mid 1500s, fueled by major port cities like Marseille and Toulon, as well as newly established French colonies in the Americas. It had never been easier to gain access to money, luxury, and exotic foods. In 1547, Catherine de' Medici married the French king Henry II, which gave France a glimpse of how the other, richer Italian half lived. Catherine, who was appalled by the French standard of food, brought Italian cooks with her to the French court. Soon gone were the preserved, heavily spiced meats and vegetables of the medieval period. Exotic and costly spices were replaced by local herbs, and newer, fresher vegetables like cauliflower, asparagus, peas, cucumber, and artichoke were introduced. Traditionally, cooks learned their craft orally or by observation and first-hand experience. But these new ingredients and recipes demanded new cooking styles and techniques. Enter François Pierre Laveran, who published the first French cookbook, Le Cuisine François. The book was originally dedicated to Laveran's fellow chefs who lacked experience or were unwilling or too timid to become involved in learning what they did not know. From front to back, the book contained over 800 recipes and had a long list of cooking rules, principles, and techniques ranging from how to prepare sauces and stocks and reductions to how to make jams and jellies. Along with the help of the printing press and the growing popularity of French cuisine, Laveran's recipes soon spread across Europe and profoundly made high-end cuisine French. In the late 1600s, French power, influence, and food reached its peak when Louis XIV, the Sun King, ascended the throne. Following the construction of Versailles, Louis XIV decided to move the entire French court and government under his roof, along with his multiple wives, mistresses, and over 20 children. Versailles soon became a statement piece of French power and wealth. The Sun King employed 500 people to prepare and serve his meals. The king ate in an audience with his wife, children, and grandchildren. Spectators had to bow as the food passed, and they couldn't talk as their voices may distract the king. Every night, over 30 dishes were served, course by course, and spectators would watch as the king tried each dish. An army of servants and chefs would ceremoniously present more and more extravagant dishes made to impress the king. And these customs continued into the mid-1700s. And why wouldn't they? France was rich. The king could do as the king pleases. France had the largest army in Europe, an economy that was double and nearly triple the size of its neighbors. French was the preferred language in all of Europe. Germans imitated French court culture and etiquette. French cooks were hired by English aristocrats, and French books were translated into English. Some Russian aristocrats could only converse in French. Unfortunately, the French kings did end up flying too close to the sun. Turns out when peasants are starving and dying on the countryside, they really don't like watching kings eat a 35-course meal by themselves on a gold plate. Luckily for the peasants, though, after the guillotining stopped, many skilled chefs were displaced and looking for work after losing their positions in rich households because, well, the aristocrats were straight up dead. These chefs focused on cooking private dinners for those who could afford it with a la carte menus. Pretty soon, chefs were opening up their own establishments and adding touches of upper class style, including private tables and the ability to place a reservation. Staples that were originally found in the homes of nobility and the aristocracy, like fine china, cutlery, and tablecloth, soon became staples of fine dining as well. The fancy, luxurious recipes, hidden away in Versailles and the homes of nobles and aristocrats, were published by Marie Antoine Carême. Carême described the dishes to a T and turned cooking into a science, describing all the techniques, ingredients, and materials one would need to replicate these dishes. He gave names to the most commonly used sauces such as bechamel, velouté, as well as hollandaise. And his cookbook introduced the term haute gastronomie, or the high-end style of cooking. Nearly 75 years later, Escoffier further simplified and modernized Carême's work with the publication of Le Guide Culinaire in 1903. And as French restaurants began to evolve, Escoffier also invented the modern kitchen brigade system, where terms like sous chef, chef de partie, chef de cuisine were invented. The Michelin Guide was first published in 1920 by Edouard Michelin, an owner of a French tire company. Originally, the guide was a clever marketing tactic. By showing top restaurants 10 or 20 miles down the road, he hoped to encourage more travel, but as the guide's influence grew, so did its prestige. In 1931, the guide began to award stars to fine dining establishments. And over the years, the guide has become a gold standard for assessing the reputability of fine dining restaurants. French cuisine eventually reached North America in the 1960s, popularized by Julia Child. Her impact on American households led to a whirlwind of interest in French food, technique, and recipes. And her work and show cemented the idea that French cooking wasn't just cooking, it was synonymous to fine dining. To this day, France has been at the forefront of cooking with over 600 Michelin stars, the most of any country in the world. Its dominance is also fueled by its home court advantage. France is one of the largest food producers in Europe. It produces the most wheat, corn, and barley. It's the second highest producer in butter and cheese, and it's the highest producer of beef and veal. Its variety of biomes and climates allow the French to harvest fruits and vegetables and give its chefs access to ingredients they couldn't find anywhere else. And beyond the food itself, meals in France are valued traditions. Eating is seen as a communal activity, so much so that dining alone is often seen as rude. France's emphasis on food, as well as its centuries of cooking experience, is shown in its standard of cooking and its influence on fine dining.